Hello, and welcome to the Flagstaff Squadron. My name is Will.
And I'm Ethan.
And today we're going to talk about The Mandalorian.
And because I'm timing our videos, I have a 45-minute timer.
Alright, so what should we talk about first?
Well, let's just talk about sort of the overview of the series.
Alright.
The Mandalorian, it is on Disney+. It is probably the main reason why anyone on this planet has bought Disney+ in the last year. And, well, let's see. It focuses around a Mandalorian named Din Djarin and Baby Yoda. Or the child, as Disney wants us to call it, but, you know, whatever.
Who cares?
It's a bad name anyway.
But yeah, I think in the first episode, we haven't even met the child yet.
No.
So it's just him getting a new mission to find... Well, technically, it starts with one of the coolest scenes of the entire series, if you ask me, at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where he just walks in.
Yeah, the cantina or bar scene where he causes some havoc. It's fun, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's one season with 40-minute episodes, and we actually touched on this a little bit in our last episode of the Flagstaff Squadcast. We touched on Mandalorian a little bit. So 40-minute episodes, 8-episode series, and they have been renewed for 2 seasons, or 2 more, past one. And they have released the casting for those seasons with 5 or 6 new characters that we've seen already in Clone Wars and Rebels. For one, Ahsoka Tano, which is actually, if you've been here a while, in our first episode we had a Google Doc with a timeline of our videos, and this episode was going to be about Mandalorian Season 2 Ahsoka Tano in live action. So I guess we're pretty true to that.
Well, what I think we should really talk about is the ending.
Yeah, possibly.
So
I mean, well, before we start,
we can't reveal much, but it's just sad.
Well, before we start this, there are going to be spoilers. So if you have not watched Mandalorian, go get a Disney Plus subscription. If you don't have one already, go watch Mandalorian and come back. Because we don't want to spoil things for you.
No, we do not.
You should just watch it yourself, and then we can talk about it like...
Goodly.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so they've released casting for Ahsoka Tano and Bo-Katan Kryze. And I am blanking on these other characters. Let me just look that up real quick.
Good character. Isn't Boba Fett supposed to be in this one?
That's right. Okay, yeah. Boba Fett is definitely going to happen, and also it's likely that Rex is going to be in it as well, which will be very exciting. And to add to that, great news, then they've also decided to cast Tamira Morrison, who is the actor who played Jango Fett in the prequels, in the Clone Troopers, of course, to play as Boba Fett and Rex in Mandalorian Season 2 or 3. That's the thing. We're not really sure if they're all going to show up in Season 2 or not. That would be kind of a little bit much. I mean, of course, we talked about this in our last episode. Mandalorian is never going to have as much screen time as Clone Wars had, so it's probably good if they it might be good if they introduce a lot of characters, but it might also not be good for just the storyline in general if you introduce 5 characters that we've already met. You know, it's just not a very good idea. Yeah, so Rex and Boba Fett, played by Tamira Morrison. That's all I can remember off the top of my head. Yeah.
So I think it's which episode is it where he and Baby Yoda get stuck on a planet and they have to go to a small village and defend it from a...
I believe it is episode 4.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, 4.
That one was kind of sad. I mean, you start off where they go to the planet and they head to a bar or something, and they meet an old ex-person who works for the
ex-rebellion, I think shock trooper. I'm not sure though. Maybe bomber. I'm not sure.
But anyway, and then they just have minor interactions, and then they go to the village.
Minor interactions? They like battle for most of the
that's
episode.
right, I forgot. And then Baby Yoda's just watching it.
Oh, that's a great scene. There are lots of memes based off of that scene. You know, they're fighting on the ground, they're rolling around on the ground. It's a really well done fight scene. And then Baby Yoda's there just sipping his bone broth like, "Hi. How you doing?"
Guys gonna notice me yet?
Yeah.
And then I think, does she go with them to the village, or is it just?
She does. Yes.
Okay, that's what. And then Baby Yoda gets along with the kids, and then
they get attacked. They get attacked by an ATST, an old Imperial one that was modified because, it's a little bit, and I've heard this a lot, that I don't think these people really understand Star Wars that as much as we do, which is funny. They're like, why is the ATST such a big deal? Like in Return of the Jedi, the Ewoks can just bounce some logs off of them and they fall down. One, I believe that the ones in Return of the Jedi and this one are different. Very similar walkers, but not the same model. And also this one, which is clearly described in the episode itself, that this one, the one that's very dangerous and is being attacked, was modified by whoever was controlling it. I do not remember the name. So it's an Imperial walker, which is already pretty scary, right? Because the Empire was scary. It may not have been stormtroopers. They just get knocked down, although they're not dead, most likely. And so it seems like the Empire is very weak, but it's really not. It was very fear-inducing and powerful, and so there are ships. When you see a ship like that, or a walker rather, you get scared. Even if it's not too much of a challenge to defeat it, you're still going to be scared because it's just like imprinted in your brain that's like something to avoid.
And I think you can actually get to fight one in Fallen Order, but that's just something completely different.
That's right.
But anyway, I think one of the villagers falls in love with the Mandalorian. But
that's right. That's a very interesting, and I really like this episode. It's one of my favorites. It's the one of the village women is is definitely attracted to the Mandalorian, even though he never takes off his helmet. And she actually before the I believe it's before. So if you've seen the episode, which you should, because I told you to go watch it before this video started. If you've seen this episode, then you know that there's another bounty hunter who is still being told to chase down the child, Baby Yoda, and who actually tries to snipe him. And so when just as this love interest of Din Djarin's is starting to take off his helmet, starting to remove his helmet, which he promised to never take off in front of anyone else in his for the rest of his life, which is a big deal, Then Baby Yoda's about to get sniped, but they save him just in time and all that. And then they fight the ATST. It's a very good episode. I'm not sure who directed it.
But the ending is sad.
I believe it was Deborah Chow. If you didn't know this, The Mandalorian, and you can find this out on the Mandalorian panel, the gallery, also on Disney Plus. It's basically just the making of The Mandalorian. There are many directors. There were directors for each episode, almost.
Which is common amongst a lot of things.
Yeah, sometimes, but like for something as like, it's almost like a mini feature film for every episode. It's it's different. Like for most, especially for Star Wars, it may be common in different franchises and different series. Especially for Star Wars, George Lucas has been most of the TV shows, all of the TV shows, I believe, except for maybe Rebels. I don't think Rebels was, and not Resistance, but prequels, original trilogy, Clone Wars, and I believe that's it. Was all directed and written, not okay. So prequels and Clone Wars were all written and directed by George Lucas. So for something that for a franchise that you usually see one person's name show up as directed by every single time, it gets a little bit weird when you see a different director that is not the one that you're used to for every episode of a 40-minute show. But they did it very well. You can tell that they're directed by different people, but it's a new turn for Star Wars, and I think a turn for the better. That they're introducing more people who are capable and willing to take on the responsibility of directing Star Wars content, and they do it very well. So they've got, gosh, I can't think of any of the names right now. Jon Favreau was the executive producer, I believe.
For all of them, right?
Yes, and as well as Dave Filoni. I can put the directors' names on screen. I'm just blanking right now. Yeah. Okay, so many directors, not a lot of episodes. They do it very well. Some episodes, and this is probably just writing. Some episodes are just not as good as others are, which is it's to be expected, of course. Like, there are episodes of the Clone Wars, even though, like, in our last episode of the Squadcast, we did talk about how the Mandalorian isn't really to be compared to Clone Wars because they're nothing alike. But Clone Wars, there are bad episodes. There are bad arcs, but it's similar. It's similar for that. Like, you have to expect some less than good episodes in a overall great series, because I really like Mandalorian. I can't wait for the next seasons. There's just, it's like some dips and some dips in the quality of the writing and the storytelling. Yeah. Well, I feel like I've been talking a lot.
The ending of episode 4 was sad. He's thinking about leaving Baby Yoda there with the children. I think that's when the sniper shows up, is when he decides to keep them there, and then all of a sudden a shot is fired.
And then he wants to take them back. Yeah.
Sorry, the shot misses because the shock trooper kills the guy, and then he realizes that nowhere is safe but with him, so he just takes Baby Yoda with him. And then later on, they have to go back to the planet where he first got the assignment to find Baby Yoda.
Right.
And he recruits the guy we saw in the first and second episode, the guy who taught the Mandalorian how to ride the thing.
Oh, yes, the Ugnaught. I have spoken.
That's
that guy.
And then they go to the planet where they have to work with, I forget who they have. Is it the guy? I know they have to, someone sends out a distress signal. I don't remember who.
A distress signal. Now,
The Mandalorian,
I have not seen Mandalorian in a while, so some of these questions and some of the things I know a lot about because I've seen those episodes a lot and I've watched reviews of them. But some episodes I just don't remember. It's been a while. I haven't seen it. I actually haven't seen an episode of Mandalorian since the finale, the day of the finale.
Which is still memorable, but I know they have to go to a planet because if I remember correctly. Wait, no, sorry, that's in an earlier episode. He gives Baby Yoda to them only to take him back.
I believe that's actually in a later episode. I believe he gets called back to the original planet to deliver the goods, I guess.
Wait, no, I remember it. it's the first episode, he finds the child, and then he brings it back and gives it to them. And then he decides to go back, and that's when they put a bounty on his head. But then he has to go back and help them with all that stuff. A bunch of people die. We're introduced to force healing.
That's right.
And then the Ugnaught guy has to protect Baby Yoda and get them away from the...
Yeah. I mean, those last few episodes, they were, some of them are very sad. Like when the Ugnaught, I can't remember his name right now. I will put it on screen. He dies trying to deliver Baby Yoda back to the ship.
Right.
He's on one of those, massive lizards. And then there's a very funny scene, really. It's pretty funny when one of the assassin droids from the very first episode, when he tries to get Baby Yoda, the assassin droid that was also sent with him, not with him, but also sent to retrieve the bounty as well as he was. After it was shot by him in a really well done scene, it's a great scene right there. It looks like the assassin droid's gonna shoot Baby Yoda, and then you see the Mandalorian's face, or not the face, but the helmet, the face of the helmet rather.
And then you hear a gunshot,
laser blast, and you're like, oh no, like this cute little 50-year-old baby. That sounds really weird. Is gonna get shot by this stupid droid, but then you see the droid fall onto the ground with a blast hole in its head, and it's just a really well done scene. It's really and this whole series was inspired by old westerns, and actually I've seen this on social media, so don't quote me on this, but the original series, just Star Wars in general, has always been influenced off of samurai movies from a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And in turn, westerns were also influenced by those samurai films. So Mandalorian is almost double, because most Star Wars movies are just based off of samurai films, but Mandalorian is based off of westerns that were based off of samurai films. So it's going all the way back, but it's a very modern show, but based off of those old movies, old TV shows. Yeah. So Mandalorian is just a really interesting show, in general. How much time do we have left on this timer? Not too long. Yeah. So it's just really interesting how it's very different from the classic Star Wars films that we've watched before. But it's good. It's a very good, and you can tell it's Star Wars. Even though it's not the classic style that you've seen before, you can still tell that it's Star Wars just in the way that it's made, because obviously, Disney has taken over Lucasfilm, and George Lucas sold it for a lot of money. I think it's $2 billion, $4 billion.
Oh, geez.
A lot of money. So he got more rich than he already was. But he's still, I believe he is maybe a producer. I don't think so, though. He's a advisor. So he's there. He was there, and you'll see this again in the Mandalorian gallery. And so he's there, right? And he's just giving feedback on the story, on the camera angles, I think, acting, direction, all that. He's there sort of as an honorary director, one might say, just helping out, and he's making it look like Star Wars content is supposed to look in his eyes. And obviously we should always follow what the creator says. Yeah. So that's pretty much all I have to say for now. Go ahead, Will.
How much time is left?
I am not sure. I actually don't think I started the timer.
Well, what we started at 3:15, right? So 3:20. So we've been doing this for
3:20.
30 minutes now.
Almost 30 minutes, yeah. Okay, so we still have 10, 15 minutes left.
I think we should. I remember the last episode.
Yes, let's talk about the finale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The I Have Spoken guy died in the episode before that.
Yeah.
But I think it starts off with the IG droid saving Baby Yoda from the clutches of those speeders and then getting him to the Mandalorian. And then they hide out in that cafe where he first got the goal and mission. And
yeah, because the Empire's there. So there are lots of these stormtroopers, and I promise, Will, I will let you talk.
All right.
There are lots of stormtroopers, and it's very interesting because those stormtroopers, they didn't have enough armor. So they actually hired the 501st Legion, which is a costuming group that mostly dresses up as clone troopers and stormtroopers in armor. So they used the stormtroopers from that. And again, this is in the Mandalorian Gallery. Go watch that. Absolutely great. It's great, and I'd really like to do that. I mean, just like, even if my face isn't in it, just like knowing that I'm in Star Wars I'm in it. Like that's just been a really big dream of mine for as long as I can remember. Being in one of those movies or TV shows, yeah. So that's interesting, and there's there's flame troopers, which is the first time we've seen flame troopers in live action other than in video games. I believe it was first released in the Force Unleashed video game from a while back. Flame troopers. You can tell they're flame troopers, obviously, because they have there are flame troopers in Fallen Order and in the sequels, but they're not the flame troopers in this. These are the original designs that they came up with for Force Unleashed. So they have red markings on they're classic stormtrooper helmets, not like the almost snowtrooper helmets as the ones that you see normal. They're just the classic stormtrooper helmets that they have red markings on them. And they have massive flamethrowers and big cannons and all that. So they're a big part, and there's a big cannon that they're using to blow up it's a lot. It's a very eventful episode. So
especially with bum bum bum.
Yeah.
Helmet comes off.
Oh yeah.
But that's just, I think the droid, what makes him take it off, and he goes, "I'm not an actor. I don't classify as a human being."
Oh yeah, that's a nice line. He says, I vowed I would never remove my helmet for any human. I am not a human.
Right.
It's great. So like all of his companions all go ahead into the tunnel.
I kind of wish that we didn't see his face because it kind of ruins the mystery a little bit.
Well, it might ruin the mystery, but I think because you already got to know him so well. And that's what matters. They did so well on making this character actually a lovable character, even though you can't see his facial expressions or his face. There's it's very, very well done, and that's why these directors are really good. This writing is really good because they use stuff like cocking heads, and just like shrugging, tilting your head back, tilting it forward. To show human emotion, even though he looks more like a droid than he does a human almost, because there's so much of him that's covered in metal armor. Go ahead, Will.
And then we have the ending with probably the coolest reveal of the entire series, of the entire season, the Darksaber.
Yeah.
This takes place 5 years after the fall of the Empire. So the last person to have had this, I think, was Sabine, if I remember correctly.
I believe so, but it also could have been Bo-Katan Kryze, which is, I believe, I can put the right answer on screen. I have never seen Rebels or anything. I saw the first season, but I didn't really like it as much. I will watch it. So I believe it was Bo-Katan Kryze who was Mandalore at the end of Rebels. So that's probably why they're introducing her, so that she can get the Darksaber back, because it's her birthright or whatever. So it's a really cool reveal. Moff Gideon, who's he's sort of been the big bad guy the whole time, although you only see him in the last 2 episodes. he's been sort of the conspirator who organized the entire thing. He's been the puppet master the entire time. So you see him, and he's super cool looking. And they modeled him after Darth Vader, which is, if you look at him pretty closely, you'll notice that it's not really like, a classic Darth Vader look.
He doesn't have a helmet or anything.
He doesn't need breathing apparatus, but he has shiny black armor on. And he's just got that evil gait, the way he walks and the way he talks. And yeah, so I go ahead, Will. I am seriously talking so much.
We have about 5 minutes left, actually.
Do we? Okay.
So, yeah. That's all we have to say about Mandalorian. I mean, season 2 seems awesome. I feel like if they're going to introduce new characters, maybe they'll have like introduce 2 of them in season 2, and then introduce a few more in season 3. But for sure,
what I think a lot of Star Wars fans are really hoping for is Ahsoka. And I mean, there are lots of different opinions on this, and we should probably touch on this. This was going to be our original idea for this, what we think about Ahsoka being in live action. I don't know. I think they might be able to pull it off, but it could go either way. And we talked about this. We said something about in our last episode, or not last episode, last podcast episode anyway. We were talking about how Disney could take Star Wars in a good direction or a bad direction. It could go either way. Same thing with this. I think they could try. I think they're going to try, and they're gonna do it. And it might not be a great idea. And our guest in last podcast talked about this. He said that characters that debuted in animation should stay in animation. And most of the time I agree, especially for alien creatures. Like Ahsoka. Ahsoka is a Togruta. And and he touched on this a little bit as well in our last podcast. He said that Twi'leks in Mandalorian, they don't look good. They don't look like the real deal, but the CGI ones do. And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that that they're going to make Ahsoka. They're going to use Ahsoka or the actress that's going to play Ahsoka, but they're not going to give her makeup that looks like Ahsoka. I think they should CGI her face.
Or they could do makeup on her face and then make a CGI for the
Leiku and the Montrals. Yeah, that's possible.
But you can have her face.
Yeah, it's pretty simple to change the color of a face in post-production, and it might look better, but it also might look better if they just slather her with makeup until she looks right. That might be difficult though.
The thing that I feel like we should end this on Boba Fett. He was a fan favorite. From the second,
was. Even though he said I believe it was 5 lines in the entire original trilogy. He was a fan favorite just because of how cool he is. I mean, he is just a super epic character. And then they introduced him as a child, which a little bit for me ruined his character. They do introduce him back. They bring him back in Clone Wars as a child, and I think that gives his character just a little bit more development, because he's just in Attack of the Clones, and I don't think he's in Revenge of the Sith. He's just a little kid who really, really likes violence. He's like, haha, when his dad shoots down Obi-Wan. Yeah, do it again, Dad. That's kind of weird. And then he's sad when his dad gets decapitated. That's all his character is. And then that's sort of like, I know George Lucas, and of course I love George Lucas, and I love everything he did, and I wouldn't want to change anything, but he used the death of his father, the death of Boba's father, as a sort of foreshadowing to him becoming a similar person as to his father, sort of to live up to the legacy that his father left.
Right.
Which I think was a good idea, but it just wasn't executed well. And so that kind of ruined his character for me, but now they're bringing him back and he's going to be old.
Old-ish, like, because this is 5 years afterwards, so he's not going to be like,
sure. He's probably going to be mid-40s.
40s, maybe 50 years old.
Yeah. But I mean, of course, he was in a Sarlacc pit for a while. So
he could be the same age as he was when he was first in there.
Accelerated his age and yeah. And so Boba Fett, that's going to be great. I for one can't wait for that. It's really going to be quite an interesting outcome. Right. So yeah, with that, I think we're going to end this episode of the Flagstaff Squadron. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and we will see you in next week, and while we review Revenge of the Sith, the last prequel movie. All right, bye everyone.